it is a snowball effect, and it started with way back in 2012. So the consistency of doing it every single week, every single day, is probably the message I want to get across to people. So it wasn't just, I'm going to start a podcast and that magically creates investors for you. It's start a podcast and start it with good content and do it consistently. And over a period of 4 or 5 years, you're going to see the fruits of your labor.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is your host, Dwaine Clarke, and today we have Reed Goossens. Reed is a real estate syndicator, entrepreneur, author, and podcast host of Investing in the U.S. Reed, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and how you doing, my friend?
G'day, Dwaine. Thanks for having me on the show, mate.
I really appreciate it. As I had mentioned pre-show, really excited to get you on because you had a really nice story on how you kind of came to America, live an American dream, and owning tremendous amount of commercial real estate, huge platform, and seemed like a short period of time. And we have a lot of investors that listen to our show as well as our local meetup groups. And I was telling them I was going to be interviewing you, so they seem pretty excited to kind of learn how they do it because we have people that are in different steps along the way on how they get to their real estate career. Sure. But before we kick things off, if you mind kind of telling us how you got started and a little bit about your company, what you're working on now.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll start with what I'm working on now. So 2020, we're sitting here. I'm the co-founder of Wildhorn Capital. We acquire multifamily real estate in Texas, specifically in the San Antonio and Austin markets. We have about a bit over 1,700 units under management, about $175 million worth of US multifamily. And I've developed that in the last, since moving to this country. We are primarily focused in and on value add multifamily. But as the recession, is looming, we're looking more into safer, higher growth markets where the jobs are going to continue to grow rather than speculative, secondary and tertiary markets. So that from a high level point of view, that's, I'm a manager of a real estate investment fund for real estate, and we're operators. We own and operate our own deals. On the other side of the coin, I also do the podcasting, this sort of stuff, the personal branding. Investing in the US is my podcast. I've got a couple of books out, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But so that's the nutshell of what I'm doing today. But we probably should rewind the clock and take you back to when I first moved to the United States. And the reason I got involved in real estate investment, Dwaine, was so my background's in structural engineering. I went to university for structural engineering, and I graduated in 2007 from a University of Queensland in Australia. Directly after that, I went straight to London to work on the 2012 Olympic Games, but in 2008, right? Obviously, a lot of infrastructure needs to be built prior to the Games. In 2009, quit the job, but my visa ran out, and I moved to the south of France, where I started working on the mega luxury yachts of the world and worked for a Russian billionaire as a deckhand, scrubbing his boat. And the reason I tell you all this is because during that time, in gallivanting around the south of France, I met my then girlfriend, now wife, Erica, who is an American girl. And so finished 2009, I sailed across the Atlantic Ocean. I backpacked throughout the United States, fell in love with New York, but ultimately ended up back in Australia at the end of 2009, early 2010. Had fallen in love with this American girl, sitting back at a day job as a civil and structural engineer, and really asking myself, what the hell am I doing with the rest of my life? And I just enjoyed this incredible 2 years being abroad, living my life on my terms. And I wanted to do that more, but I didn't know how. And so I picked up the book. I started researching, and I picked up the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And that was a sort of the moment that I really realized what entrepreneurship was. And just through inquisitiveness, I chose real estate investing just because my dad had invested a little bit in real estate. And also I was in a day job that I realized that, hey, if I pay attention, I'm already rubbing shoulders with some developers and some people who know, building massive infrastructure. So maybe you can use the day job to leapfrog into another career, i.e. real estate. So that was in 2010. Come 2 years later, self-educating in Australia, going to real estate events in Aussie, but was going to do something there. But I really had a real desire to move back to the United States. My Erica had come to Australia, had finished her master's degree, and end of 2011, we're like, let's move to New York. I really wanted to move to New York, and so I quit my job and moved halfway across the world. As the introduction said, I didn't have a job here in the United States. I had to get a job, and then I had to get a visa. But I went door knocking, and when I say a job, it was a structural engineering job, and I found a job pretty quickly. And then within a very short period of time, I was at my first New York REIA, which I'm sure you're very familiar with all the REIAs. Mm-hmm. And coming from Australia to these REIA associations with just so much wealth of knowledge and available information at your fingertips was just a very stark contrast to where I was coming from in Australia. Also, coupled with that, there was the Big Apple, right? It's fast talking Americans, taking information out of a hose. So I had to get up to speed really quickly. But at that point, Dwaine, I've been self-educating for about 2 years now. So when I first moved to the United States, I also realized that your barriers to entry here in the United States market are just so much lower than what they are in Australia. And I think within 6 months of being fresh off the boat, was going to REIA events, was understanding the markets, we're understanding the lingo. And I purchased my first property in upstate New York in Syracuse for $38,000. And I had a very good introduction into what a ghetto and a slum was. So all those things, it's a long-winded answer to your question, but that's how I got started. That's how I moved to the United States. It came from a want and a drive and a need to do more with my life, to not have any regret. I still think about the day that I moved and quit my job in Australia and moved here. The big thing that I try to teach people, or hopefully some of your listeners can take away, is that the worst case scenario for me was I moved back to Australia. If it didn't work out here in the United States, okay, I moved back. That was it. And I was okay with that. And I would rather have given it a go or given it a crack than not to have just to have sit on the sideline and not participated at all. My biggest fear is fear of regret. And I don't want to wake up when I'm 70 years of age and going, geez, I wish I moved to the United States, or geez, I wish I'd given that thing a go. And that's how I live my life. And that's really the story of coming to America, quote unquote, and giving it a go in the real estate sector. So
awesome. Yeah, like I said, that's lovely story to hear. But as far as kind of like you have a massive portfolio, 175 million under management. Can you kind of take us through how you got from the $38,000 triplex or duplex to larger assets? And because I know it's real estate is real estate. You have to educate yourself and then align yourself with either partners or gather some money somehow. Can you take us through maybe your first deal or how that transition from that thing took you?
Yeah. So the transition, it happened, bought my first property in 2012. I think I bought a second little one in early 2013, was looking to do a flip in Philadelphia, but was still working full time, right? I still had a W-2 job. And it was actually when I sat down with a good friend of mine from Canada. He came to New York, we went out for a drink. And it was the second time in my life that the penny dropped or the coin dropped. The first time was reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. The second time was having this conversation with my mate. And it went something a little bit like this, where I was boasting to him about the little properties I'd purchased in upstate New York and this flip I was starting to do. And he said, man, that's bloody awesome. He's like, I just closed. And he said, I said, what are you up to? And he said, I just closed on a 70 unit deal in Canada. And I said, 70? And he said, yeah, 70. And he explained to me the power of other people's money, the power of getting a mentor, the power of getting seller carryback financing and raising capital. And I think he raised like $500,000 from his friends and family, had a mentor, got seller carryback financing, was able to close on the 70-unit deal. And he was applying all the same strategies that I was applying in my small triplexes and duplexes in upstate New York, except he was doing it on 70 units, and it was commercially underwritten. So you're increasing the NOI, you increase the cash flow, you increase the value of the asset. Where in my resi stuff, the small duplex and triplexes, I wasn't really moving that needle because I didn't have that scale. But that was that conversation kick-started me on pretty much where the trajectory I've gotten to today was, okay, I knew that I was coming to the end of my tether in terms of how much I could do by myself. I knew I needed someone else in my corner. And that there in 2013, I actively went out and got a mentor. I actively went out and got the power of mentorship, the power of surrounding yourself with someone who you aspire to be is hugely important, because it does a few things, Dwaine. It does, one, you part ways with money to pay usually for a mentor. So it's sort of that act of giving money. It's all on the line now. And I didn't spend a ton of money, but I spent, a sizable chunk. And the second thing was I got to increase my credibility by using the credibility of my mentor. So that was the second thing. The third thing was it allowed me a sounding board and allowed me permission to go and do things that I thought I would never do, which like start a podcast. And now I started my podcast back in early 2014. I noticed that no one was, talking to international folks about the benefits of investing here in the United States. So I said, well, why the hell? I'll put myself out there. I'm going through this journey right now. What the hell? I didn't know what credit score was. I didn't know what an LLC was. I was going through all these rigmaroles when I first bought my little properties that I'm sure someone else would wanted to hear about it. And I just gave it a go, right? Giving it a crack. Having that mentor looking over my shoulder, giving me the confidence to go do that is really important. So it was a podcast. It was focusing on using the podcast to create investors. Through that, creating those investors and those relationships, I was able to co-GP on my mentors' deals. I did that for a couple of years. At the same time, I transitioned from structural engineering into a job working for a developer in Long Beach, California. I made the transition back to LA, where my wife is from. And the reason I said that is because I still needed a job to have to at least stay in this country, right? So, and I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to keep grinding away, I might as well grind away and have a day job where I'm learning from the best. And that was go and join a developer. I had a skill set being a structural engineer that was easily, translated into being an owner's rep and a project manager for about 500 luxury high-end multifamily units in Long Beach, which I spent 3.5 years building. But again, I was surrounding myself with real estate at every stage of my life. So mentor, and that I'm not with that mentor anymore, but it got me going. It gave me the confidence to go out and start a podcast. That podcast got me to go out and start raising capital from investors. Those investors helped me, co-syndicate my first deal, which got me to the second deal, which then got me into, okay, well, now I changed my mind shift and I need to get out of civil engineering and structural engineering, get into being an owner's rep for a developer, because I had to continue keeping food on the table and a roof over my head. I needed the visa. And then all of that was just the momentum building, right? And now I'm compressing years of work, hard work. This is not, I'm summarizing it very quickly for your audience, but a lot of long nights working the full 60, 70 hours in a day job, even though it was I was working for someone else's real estate dream. I was also trying to get my dreams on the side as well. So a lot of endless sleepless nights. Finally got married in 2017 and I was able to have the green card and then quit my job. And at the same time, I'd already started doing my own deals. So I'd transitioned from helping my mentor and transitioned into doing my own deals, setting up my own systems. So that was in 2017. So 2013 to 2017, there's a lot of learning and growing and expanding. And so again, I say, you say at the beginning, oh, yeah, you've jumped to 1,700 units, and it is, looking back, it is a relatively short period of time. But there was times in there where I felt like I was, like a rice burner, like not actually getting anywhere, like just a lot of energy output, but not actually moving the needle. So that is in a nutshell how I scaled from the triplex in 2012 to where I'm sitting today in 2020. So that's
definitely key. Again, mentor, and then I guess leveraging on and building to the next level. And as far as kind of like, I know that you have the podcast and things like that. Was there any other stuff? Because I know that you found a good deal and then possibly a next deal. Was there anything that helped you kind of accelerate to grow your investor base, or was it you go through a cycle with one deal and then move it to the next deal?
Yeah, no, good question. So the answer to that is no. You have to remember, 2014 is the start of the podcast. End of 2014, early 2015 is my first co-syndication I did a couple more in 2015. Again, the podcast is still building, the momentum's still building. So that's 2 years of podcasting, investors, getting involved in deals. That's building track record. In 2016, started to branch out on my own to start doing my own deals, and wasn't until early 2017 that I purchased my first deal as a lead syndicator, as my own, as Wildhorn. So those 3 years of consistently putting content out, consistently touching investors, consistently talking to investors, hosting podcasts, hosting meetups, hosting investor appreciation dinners to try and attract leads. Also, I wrote a book at the same time, I wrote a couple of books. So a lot of content, outward facing content to educate people about what I do and my message, to bring inbound investors over a period of 3 or 4 years. And I continue to do that today, in order to get to that first deal that I was a lead syndicator on, which then led to the second deal, which then led to the third deal. And now we're 8 syndications deep at 1,700 units. So it is a snowball effect, and it started with way back in 2012. So the consistency of doing it every single week, every single day, is probably the message I want to get across to people. So it wasn't just, I'm going to start a podcast and that magically creates investors for you. It's start a podcast and start it with good content and do it consistently. And over a period of 4 or 5 years, you're going to see the fruits of your labor through doing helping on other people's deals. That transitioned into my deals because people now trusted me. And that then, from 1 deal led to 2 deals, led to 6 deals, led to, 8 deals. So, and so on. So there's a lot of evolution of just putting one foot in front of the other, and knowing that I was going to get there eventually over a period of 7-8 years. So.
Awesome. It was so I know you said that your niche of your podcast is investing in the U.S. Do you get like a lot of international investors or?
Good question. So the whole premise is you when I first started my brand and my content, and this is to all the listeners out there, if they want to start branding and getting content out there, I niche till it hurts. And I found an area in the market which I open my mouth, I've got an accent, right? So I also found that no one was talking to the international folks back in 2013. So I could be the number 1 podcast in that space because I'm the only bloody podcast in that space. But you niche at the beginning, but then you pivot. And after a while, the reason I called it investing in the US, it's not just for international people. It's not just for real estate. I've done over 200 episodes. It's been going for 4 years. I'm now talking about Bitcoin. I'm now talking about how to create brand and content. I'm now talking about how to become a better CEO. I'm talking to guys who are mergers and acquisitions of just any type of investing around startups. So I knew from a longevity point of view that I had to niche and attract an audience first and a followership that people want to just love what I do. And then I could pivot and start having my own voice. And the majority of my listeners are actually Americans. It's not international folks. The majority of my investors are Americans. It's not international people. I do help. That's what I built the brand off, but it's pivoted over time and rebranded to just be encompassing of everyone and everything, not just real estate. So business, entrepreneurship, and real estate. So.
Awesome. And then you had mentioned the 2 books as well. Was it 10,000 Miles to the American Dream and then Investing in the U.S.? Tell us about that.
The Investing to the U.S. is the ultimate guide to U.S. real estate, is the best episodes from my real estate podcast jammed into a book. And I've intertwined my story in and around that. And that is literally the step-by-step guide. So I start with stuff like understanding investment lingo, understanding how to build your A-team, finding the best market to invest in here in the United States. I talk about syndications and why you'd want to syndicate. I talk also about like the 1031 exchange. It's very unique to the American market. We don't have that in Australia. So not that this is for internationals. It's all the best episodes jammed into a book, and it's with really nice, hopefully nice narrative around my story and the coming to of America. And that just hit actually number 1 on Amazon, both here in the United States and internationally, for commercial real estate and real estate sales.
Nice.
So,
congratulations.
Thank you very much. So if you guys want a copy, please jump online and grab yourself one. The second one came out in July last year, and it's actually, it's called 10,000 Miles to the American Dream. It's actually a book written by 8 authors, myself included, and we're all Australians. And on the back cover, you'll see the 8 of us. So the one person's missing, but I started this group, 3 or 4 years ago, just because I'd interviewed them on my show, or some of these blokes on my show. they're all Aussies. We all have the same mannerisms. We all have the same jokes, and they're all scattered across the country in America here. But we all had something in common. That was what we made the pilgrimage across the pond to America, and we'd started investing in real estate in some fashion. And through that, we've all had achieved financial freedom. So the tongue in cheek is it's 10,000 miles to the American dream, our story of financial freedom, and everyone has an individual chapter. I talk in there about branding and how to raise capital through a formula that I created called the 6P rule. I've got other folks in there talking about mobile home park investing, while other folks talking about investing in real estate technology and how one of them, Tim Manson, he moved out here to Silicon Valley and started a real estate tech firm from Australia. So very cool little book. We pulled it together, and there's more books to come in 2020. So they're the two books.
Awesome. So what's kind of like a typical work day, and do you have any special morning routines?
Yeah, so a typical work day is I'm a morning person, so I'm usually up by no later than 6:30. I would try to, early to bed, early to rise. I'm really big on my sleep, or have been more on my sleep. I know sleep is king for me. I need a good 8-9 hours. So making sure I'm getting to bed early is really important. For the start off the week, I really like to do my journaling and my notes for the week to understand what's coming down the pike. And it's really taking my calendar from my iPhone and putting it into a journal. So it's written down, and I've had the subconscious brain understand, okay, Monday I have a podcast, Tuesday I have another podcast. So that is a routine that I do. I love going to the gym as well. I'm very physical. I'm very active. If I don't go to the gym, I start to get a bit stir crazy. But the big thing my typical day looks like is I check in with, I try and have about an hour without the phone in the morning, try and do some deep breathing exercises, take the dog for a walk, just ease into the day. And then around, 7:30, 8 o'clock, hit the computer, try and focus on things that I've written out to be for the focus of that specific day, and do it till it's done. So don't move on to anything else until I've changed. I'm also overseeing all the operations of our portfolio. So I have a lot of weekly calls with our on-site property managers. I order product from China in terms of when we renovate our units. So we get our product directly from China. So granite, lighting, flooring, all that needs to be overseen. I oversee the general contractors who do that work. So my job is very busy, plus also trying to underwrite new deals. So when my business partner brings a new deal to the table, I've got a team of underwriters who will underwrite it for me. And then we go back and forth to see if this is a true deal. So by and large, I'm a very busy guy. When I'm awake, I'm working, but I try to also be very cognitive of turning it off, and spending time with my loved ones, my family, and also spending some time, working on myself, meditation, exercise, deep breathing, all that good stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. What can you say that you're most grateful for?
Mate, I've got a lot to be grateful for. I've got a lot to be grateful for. My upbringing. My parents had a pretty humble upbringing, both school teachers back in Australia, but taught me the value of a dollar. I remember my dad telling me that, the best ever piece of advice is a fool and their money are easily parted. And, don't be a fool when it comes to investing, be educated. I'm grateful for the fact that I get to choose to live around the world. That's not lost on me, that I know many people, around millions of people, billions of people around the world can't choose to just get up and move halfway across the world. I'm grateful for that. I was born into a Western country. Imagine growing up in a war zone. I don't know. I wouldn't be sitting here today. So a lot of things I'm grateful for in my life, and I try to have gratitude each and every day towards, outwards going, and also towards my wife and the life that I do live. I'm extremely grateful every single day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so we got your two books, 10,000 Miles to the American Dream and Investing in the U.S. Is there any other contact information we can get in touch with you?
Yeah, mate. Look, if you're ever, everything's on the website, reedgoossens.com. That's REEDGOOSSENS.com. You can obviously find my podcast on iTunes or wherever you podcast. But the last thing I can offer your listeners is, if they're ever coming through LA and they want to meet up for a beer or a coffee, I'm always willing to meet up and talk shop. So just got to email me at info, that's INFO at reedgoossens.com. And as long as you give me a month or two advance warning, I'll try and move the schedule around so we can go out for a quick coffee or a beer. So yeah.
Awesome. Reed, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking some of the time out of your busy schedule. Talk to our audience, and look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Hey, Dwaine, doing an absolutely incredible job, mate. Keep it up. And thanks for having me on the show.
All right. Take care, my friend.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or the listening platform of your choice. Also, please check us out at DwaineLClarke.com, as well as find us on Facebook for more useful content and resources.